At the beginning of the second season of Squid Game, we see Gi-hun at the airport, having won 45 billion won at the cost of many lives. Despite his newfound wealth, Gi-hun is tormented by guilt. Instead of flying to New York to enjoy his riches, he decides to return to Seoul to find the game's organizers and hold them accountable. Unexpectedly, the game's host calls him, warning that if he tries anything against them, he will be eliminated. Gi-hun immediately realizes he's being watched and suspects there's a tracking device hidden on him. He goes to the restroom to search his body and confirms his suspicions. He finds the device and disposes of it. Meanwhile, at a hospital, Jun-ho, the police officer who infiltrated the game in the first season to find his brother, In-ho, regains consciousness. Previously, Jun-ho discovered that In-ho was the masked man running the entire operation. In-ho had shot him to get rid of him, but Jun-ho was lucky. A fisherman saved him. After being in a coma for some time, Jun-ho wakes up to his mother's joyful cries as she calls for the doctor. 2 years pass. Jun-ho is now working as a traffic officer. One day, he pulls over a young man riding a motorcycle without a helmet and attempts to confiscate his license. The man's girlfriend, noticing Jun-ho's attractiveness, starts flirting with him, but he ignores her. Frustrated, the jealous boyfriend speeds off, leaving the girl bewildered. Jun-ho laughs at the situation. Later, he meets his former boss, who urges him to return to the Major Crimes Division instead of working traffic. The boss reminds him that he followed all of Jun-ho's leads about the island mentioned in his investigation, but found no evidence of its existence. The only proof Jun-ho has is the bullet lodged in his shoulder, which cannot be traced. The boss asks if Jun-ho remembers who shot him. Although Jun-ho knows it was his brother, In-ho, he lies, saying he doesn't remember, still hoping his brother will change and come back home. At night, we see Gi-hun hiding in a hotel. Suddenly, there's a knock at the door. He grabs a gun, then notices a Squid Game invitation card on the floor. Shocked, he quickly opens the door to find a masked man, the game's leader. But at that moment, Gi-hun wakes up and realizes it was just a dream. Soon, there's another knock at the door. Remembering his dream, Gi-hun thinks it's coming true. When he opens the door, it's his acquaintance, Kim. Kim tells Gi-hun that his team has been unsuccessfully searching for the recruiter at all the metro stations in Seoul for 2 years. Realizing that a new game is about to start, exactly 3 years after he first received his invitation, Gi-hun decides not to give up. He hands Kim a bag of money, instructing him to continue the search. Gi-hun also tells Kim to hire as many people as possible and promises an additional billion won to anyone who finds the recruiter. Gi-hun is certain the recruiter is already looking for new participants. In the second season of Squid Game, we discover that Kim is the leader of a criminal gang. He agreed to search for the man in the suit not only for the promised money, but also because many of his debtors had suddenly disappeared. Kim suspects they may have become participants in the Squid Game. The next day, Kim's assistant, Woo-seok, shows the gang members a statue resembling the recruiter and instructs them to take photos of it so they can recognize him. To motivate them, he promises $500,000 to whoever finds the target. Kim's men scour the stations, photographing anyone suspicious and sharing the images in a group chat. Gi-hun monitors everything from his car. Meanwhile, Inspector Jun-ho heads to the port to meet the sailor who saved his life. It's revealed that they have been regularly going out to sea in search of the island where the games are held. Over 2 years, they've explored hundreds of islands. Jun-ho even has a map with marked locations, but despite their efforts, he has yet to find the island where his brother is. After hours of searching, Kim and Woo-seok begin losing hope. They speculate that Gi-hun might just be delusional and wasting his money. Suddenly, they hear a sharp clap and spot the recruiter described by Gi-hun playing dakji with someone. They quickly photograph him and send the images to Gi-hun, who instructs them to follow the recruiter without losing him. Gi-hun races toward their location at breakneck speed. The recruiter buys some buns and 100 lottery tickets before heading to an area crowded with homeless people. He approaches each of them, offering a choice, a bun or a lottery ticket. Everyone chooses the lottery ticket, hoping for a life-changing win. In the end, no one wins anything. When the recruiter runs out of tickets, he stands in the middle of the park, throws the remaining buns on the ground, and stomps on them. The homeless onlookers are bewildered. One man asks why he's doing this. The recruiter replies that they all chose the game and rejected the gift. Kim and Woo-seok are stunned by his behavior and start suspecting he might be crazy. They film him and send the footage to Gi-hun, who is still speeding toward them. However, Gi-hun's reckless driving gets him pulled over by the traffic police for speeding. The officer issues him a fine and confiscates his license. Meanwhile, the man in the suit gets into a taxi and drives off. Kim panics at the thought of losing the recruiter and jumps into another taxi with Woo-seok, instructing the driver to follow. Gi-hun pays the fine and speeds off again. The officer, confused by his behavior, returns to his partner, who turns out to be Jun-ho. The officer mentions that the driver had numerous phones in his car. Jun-ho grows suspicious and asks to see the driver's license. Upon seeing Gi-hun's name, Jun-ho is surprised. It's a name he's come across before. The recruiter exits the taxi and heads into a secluded alley. Kim, fearing he might lose him, decides to apprehend him. Woo-seok hesitates, but Kim insists that the recruiter is alone while they are too. Besides, Kim jokes, they're gangsters, and the recruiter looks like a nerd in a suit. However, the recruiter unexpectedly reveals his martial arts skills and takes them both down in minutes. When Gi-hun finally arrives at the scene, he finds no one there. He tries calling Kim, but there's no response. Instead, Gi-hun discovers Kim's knife and instantly realizes that the recruiter has likely abducted them. The recruiter watches him from the rooftop of a nearby building. The gangsters are shown tied up in an unknown location. The recruiter removes their blindfolds and proposes a little game called Rock, Paper, Scissors with a revolver. The revolver contains one bullet, and whoever loses is eliminated. He picks up the gun and orders them to start the game, warning that anyone who refuses will automatically lose. Kim agrees to play, but Woo-seok hesitates and refuses. The recruiter declares that Woo-seok has lost. He pulls the trigger on Woo-seok, but luckily, the bullet doesn't fire. The next round begins. They play several rounds, but the recruiter grows bored and decides to load 5 bullets instead of 1, increasing the chances of a shot to 5 out of 6. The gangsters cry, but are forced to continue. Kim willingly loses to give Woo-seok a chance to survive. The recruiter congratulates Woo-seok, declares him the winner, and decides to have a talk with him. During the conversation, he extracts the information he needs and learns that Gi-hun is the one who made the deal with them. Meanwhile, Jun-ho sneaks into the police station to check Gi-hun's details in their database. He discovers the name of the hotel where Gi-hun is staying. When Gi-hun returns to his hotel room, he finds the recruiter waiting for him. The recruiter tells Gi-hun that he knows Gi-hun has been looking for him and decided to come to him instead. Gi-hun replies that he isn't afraid of him and will do whatever it takes to stop the game. He demands to know who the recruiter works for. The recruiter begins telling his story about how he got started in this deadly game. He explains that he began as a cleaner for the eliminated players, but was later promoted, given a gun and a mask, and tasked with executing the losers. One day, he was assigned to eliminate a player, only to discover it was his own father. Without hesitation, he completed the task and realized he was made for this job. The recruiter tells Gi-hun that they are the same, both dogs of fate. Fate played its game, and Gi-hun won. The recruiter offers him another game to test his luck. The recruiter pulls out a card from his pocket, an invitation to the game, and says Gi-hun can have it if he wins. The rules are simple. They will spin the revolver with 1 bullet and take turns pulling the trigger until one of them is left standing. Gi-hun agrees, desperate to find a way to contact the main organizers and stop the game. The first shot is empty. Then it's the recruiter's turn, and he is also lucky. After several rounds, the recruiter loses, and Gi-hun takes the invitation card from his pocket. At that moment, police officer Jun-ho arrives at the hotel where Gi-hun is staying. Hearing a gunshot, he begins searching the rooms. In one of them, he finds Woo-seok tied up and crying. Woo-seok, terrified, tells Jun-ho the number of Gi-hun's room. When Jun-ho enters, he finds Gi-hun standing over the recruiter's body. Believing that Gi-hun killed him, Jun-ho decides to arrest him. He cuffs Gi-hun, but suddenly Woo-seok sneaks up from behind and strikes Jun-ho with a fire extinguisher. Gi-hun learns from Woo-seok that Kim is dead and that the recruiter killed him. Woo-seok recounts everything that happened to him and his boss Kim. We then see a young woman named No-wool sleeping in someone else's car in a parking lot. A security guard approaches the car and tells her that sleeping in someone else's car is prohibited, warning that he'll have to report her to his superiors if it happens again. Meanwhile, Jun-ho regains consciousness after being hit with the fire extinguisher. Gi-hun assumes Jun-ho is one of the game organizers, but Jun-ho explains he's looking for his brother. Jun-ho reminds Gi-hun that they've met twice before, and Gi-hun begins to remember him. After a brief exchange, Gi-hun tells Jun-ho what happened and insists he's not responsible for the recruiter's death. He explains it was simply a game, one the recruiter lost. Gi-hun adds that his goal is to find the masked man and put an end to the games. Jun-ho reveals that he's also searching for the masked man and asks Gi-hun to let him go so he can help. Gi-hun hesitates, unsure if he can trust him, and initially decides to act alone. However, before leaving, Jun-ho mentions that he's seen many things on the island and could be useful. Realizing Jun-ho's potential value, Gi-hun frees him, and together with Woo-seok, they head to the location where the money is hidden. Jun-ho verifies that Gi-hun truly won the game. Gi-hun promises to give them all the money if they help him stop the games. Jun-ho responds that money isn't his objective, while Woo-seok declares his goal is to avenge his boss, Kim. Gi-hun leads them to his underground hideout, where he stores weapons and explosives. He shows them the arsenal and tells them they can train there anytime they want. The room is soundproof, so no one will hear the gunfire. The scene shifts to a city carnival where people are enjoying themselves. A person in a pink rabbit costume approaches a little girl and gives her a lollipop, bringing her great joy. Later, the person in the rabbit costume enters a dressing room and removes the mask, revealing it's No Yul, the same woman who was sleeping in the car. At that moment, a little girl walks into the dressing room and hands the rabbit a drawing she made. A young man dressed as a pig without a mask enters the room. Seeing that regular people are beneath the costumes, the little girl starts crying. Her father arrives and takes her away. After they leave, No Yul learns that the girl's father is a struggling artist and that the girl herself has leukemia and requires an expensive bone marrow transplant. Meanwhile, Gi-hun watches Cheol, Se-byok's younger brother, who has grown up and started school. He observes that the mother of his late friend, Sang-woo, is raising the boy as her own son. Gi-hun feels a mixture of sadness and happiness, but doesn't visit them to avoid putting them in danger. Gi-hun also learns from a human trafficking agent that Se-byok's tuberculosis-stricken mother was recently released from prison and could be relocated to Seoul. Gi-hun gives the agent the address and phone number of Sang-woo's mother, so that if he can't be reached, Se-byok's mother can be directed to where Cheol is living. Gi-hun even offers additional money, but the agent declines, saying Gi-hun has already paid enough and that he owes a debt to Se-byok. After Gi-hun leaves, No Yul approaches the agent. She asks the detective to help find her missing daughter. The detective says he's searched everywhere, but hasn't found any trace of her. Refusing to give up, No Yul hands over all the money she's earned as an entertainer at the amusement park and pleads with the agent to continue the search for her daughter. That evening, as No Yul sleeps in the car again, a man taps on her window and hands her a business card with an invitation to the Squid Game before walking away. After dialing the number, she receives information about the meeting location. Detective Jun-ho visits the cemetery where his brother In-ho's wife is buried, marking the anniversary of her death. Jun-ho waits near the grave, hoping his brother will come to pay respects, but In-ho never appears. Later that evening, Jun-ho has dinner with his mother, assuring her that he'll find his brother soon. His mother replies that she feels as though In-ho no longer wants to be part of their lives. The scene shifts to No Yul, who has submitted her resignation at the amusement park. As she's leaving, she sees the young girl from earlier being taken away in an ambulance, with her father accompanying her. Noticing the girl dropped her hat, No Yul secretly returns it to her later that evening. Gi-hun places a tracking device inside a tooth to allow Jun-ho and Woo-seok to locate him when he enters the game. Woo-seok, now the leader of his gang, even enlists his best men to assist Gi-hun. Feeling that his time may be running out, Gi-hun calls his daughter but doesn't have the courage to speak. He listens to her voice before hanging up. Gi-hun arrives at the address on the recruiter's card and instructs Jun-ho to stay in the car to avoid being recognized, given his previous involvement on the island. Gi-hun and Woo-seok enter the club and split up to search for the masked individuals from the Squid Game. One of the masked men uses a taser to incapacitate Woo-seok and then approaches Gi-hun, who silently follows him out of the club and into a limousine. Meanwhile, Jun-ho attempts to enter the club, but is stopped by security. When he draws his gun and identifies himself as a police officer, the guard steps aside and lets him in. Realizing that Gi-hun has gotten into a limousine, Jun-ho orders Woo-seok's gang to follow the vehicle. Inside the limousine, Gi-hun hears the game master's voice through a pig-shaped speaker. The voice reminds Gi-hun that he was warned to board a plane and leave Seoul. Gi-hun demands the game be stopped, accusing the master of deceiving people. The game master laughs, claiming he's merely giving people a chance to improve their lives. As Woo-seok's gang attempts to stop the limousine, a sniper fires from a distance, blowing out the tires of their vehicles and preventing the chase. Realizing what's happened, Gi-hun grabs a gun and tries to shoot the driver to stop the limousine, but the car is bulletproof. Switching to Plan B, he pleads with the game master to let him participate in the Squid Game again. The game master laughs at Gi-hun's sudden change of heart, mocking him for asking to stop stopped the game moments earlier and now begging to join. He agrees and sleeping gas fills the car. It's revealed that the game master was sitting in the front passenger seat of the limousine all along. Jun-ho orders Woo-seok's gang to move on to Plan B. No-wol arrives at the meeting point from the card, where she sees 3 trucks with containers. She enters container number 11 to change clothes, only to reveal a twist. She's not a participant in the game, but a pink soldier wearing a triangular mask. Police officer Jun-ho takes Woo-seok and his gang with him, and they head toward the sailor, following the GPS coordinates from Gi-hun's tooth to reach the island. Gi-hun regains consciousness after being knocked out by the gas. He's assigned the number 456 again. He finds himself next to a woman who claims to be a psychic, saying she feels a lot of negative energy around him. Gi-hun looks around and sees all the other participants who have also joined the game. Then, the pink soldiers enter the room. The participants demand the soldiers take off their masks, but they refuse. One player complains about his shoes, another about the color of his outfit, and a third is surprised to see his mother there, who came to pay off her son's debts. The game master starts showing videos about each participant, revealing their massive debts. One person owes 4 billion won, another 5 billion, and a third owes 10 billion won. Everyone is shocked and asks how someone could owe 10 billion won. It turns out it's the elderly man, but he proudly admits it, saying not everyone is trusted with that much debt. The game masters also show a player numbered 333, named Myung-gi. He used to make YouTube videos about cryptocurrency, but after the collapse of his investment scheme, many of his fans, along with himself, were left penniless, including several players in the game. Among them is player number 230, who trusted Myung-gi, invested all his money in cryptocurrency, and lost it all. This player, known as the rapper Thanos, is well known in Korea. The game masters ask the players to sign a form agreeing to participate in the game. Before they do, however, they announce that the rules have changed. From now on, participants can vote to end the game after each round and then divide the winnings evenly among themselves. In the first season, players left empty-handed if they chose to quit. Player 230 and player 124 approach Myung-gi and demand that he return all the money they lost. Myung-gi replies that after every video, he warned his viewers that the choice was always theirs. The rapper wanted to hit him for this, but another player stopped him. All the players sign the documents and then move on to the photo stage. One of the players recognizes the famous rapper Thanos. He asks to take a picture with his idol. Several other players, upon recognizing Thanos, also ask for a photo. Thanos promises to take pictures with everyone after the games. An elderly woman sees a woman who was previously a man and asks her son about her gender. The son refers to her as transgender, but the woman still can't understand how that is possible. We are shown Gi-hun, who is caught up by his old friend, number 390, named Jung-bae. Jung-bae has lost a lot of money and gotten into debt due to gambling, so he participates in the game to pay off his debts. It also turns out that Jung-bae has divorced his wife. Gi-hun asks his friend to stay close to him. Then all the participants go to play the first game, red light, green light. We are immediately shown that number 230 is a self-absorbed narcissist when he starts hitting on the girl, number 196. Meanwhile, Officer Jun-ho and the others arrive at the island via GPS coordinates, the one that was in Gi-hun's teeth. They begin to scout the island using a drone, but notice nothing unusual. They continue toward the marker to find it. And then, surprise, instead of Gi-hun, they find a fisherman, and in his box of worms, there's a GPS tracker. They realize that the organizers found out about the GPS tracker and planted it on a random fisherman. At that moment, Gi-hun starts to feel a bit nervous. He decides to check the tracking device that was in his teeth. He takes it out, but doesn't find it. Now he's trapped, and his only option is to act alone. Meanwhile, the host, who is monitoring the game, is informed that the game is ready to begin. When the voice announces the game rules, Gi-hun stops everyone. He says that if they lose, there will be real gunshots. Everyone stands still, surprised, and thinks he's crazy and foolish. Gi-hun starts explaining the game rules and tells them that the mannequin's eyes have a sensor that will activate if they move. The mannequin starts singing, and the host watches it with a glass of wine. Gi-hun helps the participants, instructing them to stay still when he says stop. The mannequin sings for the first time, and no one dies. When the mannequin turns around a second time, still no one dies. On the third turn, a bee lands on number 196's neck, and of course, she gets scared, moves, and is eliminated. Gi-hun begs them to stay still, but people begin to panic, running toward the exit, trying to leave. But as we know from the first season, all of this is pointless. Many are eliminated, and one of the shooters turns out to be the girl in the bunny costume, number 11, named No Yul. Those who didn't move and survived, Gi-hun orders to form a line so that those who move won't attract the mannequin's attention. The son hides his mother behind him. At this point, number 11 notices the artist, number 246, who is the father of the sick girl who drew the picture for her. She immediately realizes that he's participating to somehow help his daughter. When the next round begins, Thanos deliberately pushes people from behind so they fall and are eliminated from the game. Player 444 gets shot in the leg. He asks Gi-hun for help, and although Gi-hun has passed the first game, he goes back to help the player. When Gi-hun helps the injured player, the transgender girl, number 120, helps him. At the last second, they successfully cross the finish line, but number 11 finishes off player 444 because he had already been eliminated and broke the rules. The sailor recommends they turn back and wait it out as a storm is about to begin. The ship turns around and departs. The host leaves, and another person in a black mask with a square symbol steps in. After the game, the terrified players try to figure out how to escape. When the pink soldiers enter the waiting room, they announce that 91 players have been eliminated. Upon seeing the soldiers, a mother collapses to her knees, begging for forgiveness and pleading to be released with her son. Other participants follow her example. The soldier reminds them that participation is voluntary. At this moment, Gi-hun enters and says that according to the third rule, they can leave the game if they vote to do so. The soldier confirms this is true and that it's their right and choice. He then shows them a device with a circle and a cross, and those who agree to continue the game must press the circle, while those who want to leave must press the cross. First, however, the soldier shows them how much money they would receive if they leave. 9 billion won, the prize to be divided among the surviving players. This means each player would leave with 25 million won. Many are unhappy with this small amount. Some players, particularly those in debt, agree to continue playing, but others are still scared and want to leave. Voting begins. Gi-hun votes first. Players must wear a patch on their chest showing their choice. In the middle of the vote, Gi-hun tries to reason with the others and leave the game. The others wonder how he knew what was going to happen in the game and even suspect he might be a planted agent. The elderly woman supports Gi-hun, saying they're all alive because of him and asks them to listen to him and leave. Gi-hun admits that 3 years ago, he played in this game and was the only one to survive. Some don't believe him, as they find it illogical that if he won a large sum of money, he would return. Thanos intervenes and says Gi-hun is the key to winning, because if Gi-hun played, he would know what to do. Thanos riles up the crowd for a victory and to continue the game. The pink soldiers cut off Gi-hun's speech, calling it interference. The voting continues. In the end, the result is 182 to 182. Only one player remains who hasn't voted, player number 1, whose vote is the deciding one. He steps forward and chooses to continue the game. This means they won't leave, but shock hits when we see the face of player number 1. It's Jun-ho, the man in the black mask, the host, and the brother of police officer Jun-ho. The host decided to participate in the competition. After the vote, the participants go to rest, receive food and water, but Gi-hun can't eat because he's not in the mood. Jung-bae tells him he must eat to continue the game. Gi-hun gets angry at his words. At this moment, Jun-ho and the other participants approach them. They ask him to help them win, as he has the most experience. Player number 1 pretends to be just another participant, so they don't know he's the man in the mask. Jun-ho says he voted to continue because Gi-hun has already won, and all their hope is on him. They ask what the next game will be, and Gi-hun tells them about the Dalgona game to save their lives. He explains that in the next game, they will need to choose shapes from cookies, and they should pick the triangle, as it is the easiest, while the umbrella is the hardest. The players start to make arrangements among themselves to keep quiet about the situation. After all, if some players are eliminated from the game, the prize pool will increase. Gi-hun gets angry about this and says that he's helping them to save their lives, not for the money. Gi-hun says that if it's confirmed that the next game is Dalgona, he'll tell the others which shape they should pick. One of the participants goes to his mother to tell her about the next game, but finds her missing from the bed. It turns out that his mother went to a girl and gave her food, noticing that the girl is pregnant. The elderly woman tells her that if she needs anything, she can call her. The girl is touched by her words and thanks her, saying her name is Hyunju. At that moment, the son returns and takes his mother to tell her what he has learned. Player number 1 approaches Gi-hun and asks why he continues participating in the game if he already won once and is very rich. Jun-ho asks if Gi-hun lost all his money on gambling. Gi-hun replies that the money isn't his, but belongs to all the participants who lost. Gi-hun blames In-ho for choosing to continue the game when they were all at an equal point, but In-ho says that he wasn't the only one who made that decision. Many players, including him, chose to continue. A while later, player number 388 approaches. He wants to join Gi-hun's team because Gi-hun is the only one who knows the rules of the game. It turns out that player 388 served in the Marine Corps, so Jung-bae accepts him into the team, as Jung-bae also served in the Marine Corps. Meanwhile, Thanos and his lackey start bothering Myung-gi, taking his food. He gets angry and starts arguing with them. At that moment, In-ho intervenes in the conflict, asking them to respect their elders and stop bullying. He warns them that if they don't stop, it'll be worse for them. A small fight ensues with In-ho coming out victorious. The other participants are impressed by his actions and applaud him. The first day of the game ends. The soldiers remove their uniforms and go to their rooms. No-ul, feeling sad, continues to think about the player who joined the game to save his sick daughter. She thinks that neither he nor his daughter will survive. At night, all the players lie down to sleep. Player number 1 goes to speak with Gi-hun and apologizes for choosing to continue the game. Gi-hun also apologizes to him. In-ho decides to tell Gi-hun his story. He says that his wife is sick and needs a liver transplant and that she is also pregnant. He says that he had to borrow a lot of money until he was deep in debt. That's why he decided to participate in the game, to pay off his debts and save his wife's life and their unborn child's life. This is when we learn how In-ho ended up in the game years ago and somehow became the host. Judging by the tears in his eyes, it seems he was sincere. At the same time, we see a group of guards moving the bodies of the deceased game participants. This is happening behind the scenes of the game, as they resell the bodies for parts. However, they realize that some of the parts are damaged from shots to the heart or head. It turns out that this is the work of the 11th. The soldier contacts the man with the square mask, whom the host temporarily left in charge, to tell him about this. The man with the square mask calls No-yul to talk to her. He asks why she's doing this and demands that she follow his orders without question. She refuses and explains that she agreed to participate in the game to end people's suffering, not to torment them. The man with the square mask gets angry and tells her that they will all die anyway. He says that they're taking their body parts to help others. The next day, Jun-ho arrives at his superior's office and asks for help. His superior agrees and takes him to see the colonel. Jun-ho tells the colonel that the game has started again and informs him about the kidnapped people on the island. Naturally, the colonel doesn't believe him and thinks he's losing his mind. The colonel asks Jun-ho to either quit the police force or provide proof. Feeling disappointed, Jun-ho realizes the police won't be of any help. He leaves the police station and decides to take matters into his own hands. He contacts Woo-seok and tells him they need to act on their own as soon as the weather clears up. As soon as Woo-seok finishes the phone call, he returns to the table with the sailor. The men discuss how one didn't believe Jun-ho and the other didn't believe Gi-hun, but everything they said turned out to be true. They realize they have 5 days before the game ends. The next game begins. All the players decide to choose the triangle, following Gi-hun's advice. Gi-hun is the first to get his cookie, but then he sees that the game has become much more difficult. The other participants begin to blame Gi-hun, thinking he's the one who let them down. Suddenly, Gi-hun wakes up and realizes it was just another nightmare. The morning comes, and all the players are woken up. Hyunju approaches the YouTuber, who turns out to be the father of her child. He asks her why she didn't have an abortion. She replies that she wants to raise the child, but adds that she will do it on her own, without him. The guards enter and demand the players go with them for the next game. They take them to the location of the game, but it turns out it isn't Dalgona. The rules of the new game are simple. They need to race in a circle as a team of 5, with their legs tied together. Along the way, each person must play one of 5 popular games. They must decide which game to play before the start. They're given 10 minutes to prepare. Gi-hun is surprised to see a completely different game instead of Dalgona. The players start blaming Gi-hun, saying it's his fault. Player number 1 warns everyone that anyone who tries to harm Gi-hun will regret it. The players decide not to cause trouble and walk away. Gi-hun thanks In-ho. They decide to join forces to win. 2 more people join them, so now their group consists of 4. They need 1 more person to complete their team. The YouTuber approaches the pregnant girl, suggesting they team up. He tells her she needs him to win, as no one would take a pregnant girl into their team, but she refuses, saying she doesn't trust him. Player number 7 takes his mother and suggests they join another team, but they're turned down because the elderly woman would just be a burden. They ask him to leave her behind and come alone, but he refuses. His mother feels guilty loyalty and says she will find another team, but her son refuses to leave her. He's confident they'll find a team. Later, the pregnant girl approaches Gi-hun and asks for help, offering to join their team. They turn her down. She tells them she's pregnant and this is her last chance. This moves them and they agree to take her in. Everyone starts talking about what games they're best at and divides the games among themselves to win. In-ho almost slips up by calling Gi-hun by name, since Gi-hun hadn't introduced himself by name, but In-ho quickly realized and said he had heard his friend Young-bae call him by name. After a while, the game begins. The first game involves flipping cards to move on to the next game. Then there's a stone game where you have to knock over stones to advance to the next round. After that, players must pick stones based on numbers and colors, remove one, and flip it. If successful, they can proceed to the next game. The next game is a yo-yo challenge. All you need to do is make it spin after throwing it. The final game requires kicking a ball 5 times. Unfortunately, the first 2 teams fail and are eliminated. The pink soldiers come in to take away the losers. They notice one player is still alive, so they decide to send him to his destination, but no Yul, player number 11, interferes with their plans again. Next up is the team of the elderly woman, her son, the transgender player, the psychic, and the psychic's friend. The elderly woman notices that the team is scared and nervous. She tells them that she survived the Korean War, so she won't lose this children's game. She encourages the team and tells them they will win. The girl successfully flips the card on her first try. The elderly woman's son also completes the task. After that, it's the elderly woman's turn, and she too successfully completes the task. In the next game, the psychic has to wind a string around a top and throw it, but she struggles. The transgender player slaps the psychic and tells her to pull herself together. The psychic decides to try again, and this time, she succeeds. Now it's the transgender player's turn, where she has to kick the ball 5 times. Before doing so, she asks everyone to look away. She successfully completes the task on her first try, kicking the ball 5 times. When the elderly woman's team wins, the others start to feel more confident, and many of them successfully advance in the game. After a while, only 2 teams remain, one of which is Gi-hun's team. The pregnant girl flips the card successfully on her first try. Young-bae throws a stone and also wins on his first try. Player number 3, with his sleight of hand, brings them victory in just a few seconds on his first attempt. When it's In-ho's turn, he purposely drags his feet and keeps losing. But on the 3rd try, he decides to stop pretending and secures their victory. Time is running out, and now it's Gi-hun's turn. He must kick the ball 5 times. He manages to kick the ball the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th time, but misses on the 5th. In-ho helps him, and they win. When Gi-hun's team returns victorious, some of the players are upset, hoping they would lose to get more money. However, the elderly woman is glad to see the pregnant girl among the winners. The players relax in the waiting room. In-ho seems to want to gain Gi-hun's trust and apologizes once again for his failures during the game. One of the players suggests they introduce themselves. In-ho, instead of using his real name, says his name is Yeonil. The Marine says his name is Daho. Meanwhile, Thanos orders his henchmen to treat each other equally. The elderly woman asks the transgender player why she asked everyone to look away during the game. The transgender player replies that it helps her concentrate. After the workday ends, the soldiers return to their rooms. 2 soldiers, unhappy with number 11, follow her. They enter her room and remove her mask, realizing she is a girl. They warn her that if she messes with their work again, she won't be able to pull the trigger of the machine gun. Then they let her go and leave. Later, it's time to vote on whether they will continue playing or not. The old woman, believing that the game will end this time, invites all the players to her house after the game, saying she'll even cook pork. Although the amount of money is already large, many want even more. Those who had refused before start agreeing to continue. Among them is the old woman's son. Even the transgender player votes to continue the game. Gi-hun tenses up and tries to persuade them otherwise, with In-ho supporting him in this decision. However, player number 100, who owes 10 billion won, steps forward and convinces the others to continue playing. He tells everyone that after the 3rd game, their winnings will be 3 to 4 times greater. This time, Gi-hun votes last, but his vote wouldn't have made a difference, as the result is 115 in favor versus 139 against. During lunch, player 125 asks the Pierce girl why she chose him for her team in the previous game and always helps him. The Pierce girl tells him that player 125 seems reliable and someone who won't betray her. Meanwhile, the old woman is angry at her son for voting to continue the game. The old woman then asks the transgender player why she wants to continue. The transgender player admits that she's saving for a house in Thailand and wants to live a peaceful life, as many in Korea bully her for transitioning. Player 390, who is Gi-hun's friend and voted to continue, feels guilty about his choice, but his friends reassure him, saying that his vote didn't really matter. In-ho gives his milk to the pregnant girl. Meanwhile, Thanos confronts Myung-gi in the restroom. When Thanos grabs Myung-gi, In-ho enters, and Thanos lets go of him. Night falls and it's time for sleep. Gi-hun wakes up paranoid, fearing that other players will attack him to increase the prize, although there are no signs of this. Gi-hun asks his teammates to sleep in shifts so that other players won't attack them during the night. At night, the old woman and the pregnant girl go to the restroom, and the transgender player tags along. In the restroom, the pregnant girl cries, and the old woman hugs and comforts her. Player 120 watches this. Later that night, Gi-hun and Jung-bae chat. Jung-bae asks why Gi-hun came back to this game when anyone who wins such an amount would simply start over with a clean slate. Gi-hun admits that he wants to stop the game. In-ho secretly listens to their conversation. The night passes peacefully. The next day, Jun-ho and the others head off to search for the island, splitting into two teams to find it more quickly. The players are taken to a strange location that resembles an amusement park. The rules for the game, called the odd one out, are explained to them. They are asked to walk to the center of the arena. When the game starts, it will spin them around. They'll hear a random number in the music, and within 30 seconds, they must split into that many teams. Then, each team must hide in a room, and those who fail to find a team are eliminated. The players understand that it will be a tough game, but they have no choice but to continue. They all step onto the rotating platform, the music starts, and suddenly it stops. They hear a voice announcing 10. Each team begins searching for people to join their room. Gi-hun's team joins the old woman's team, and they manage to get into a room just in time. Inside the room, the clairvoyant tells Gi-hun that his destiny is to save the pregnant woman's child. Once the countdown ends, the guards begin eliminating everyone who didn't find a team. This time, soldier number 11 doesn't intervene in the human parts dealer's business. Gi-hun feels powerless because he can't protect them. Thus ends the first round, and the second round begins. The participants are once again standing on the rotating platform, music plays again, and suddenly it stops. They hear a voice announcing 4. Everyone understands that each team must consist of 4 people. Gi-hun decides to risk his life to save his team and make them 4. He asks them to enter the room, but player 1 refuses, saying it's better for Gi-hun to go with them, and he will find another team. Gi-hun listens to him because there is almost no time left. Eventually, the countdown ends. One team breaks the rules and enters a room with only 3 members, thinking the soldiers won't notice, but they are punished for cheating and breaking the rules. When the players exit the rooms, Gi-hun is worried about player 1. He is relieved to see him alive. The game continues, and the third round begins. The music starts playing again, and this time, the number 3 is called. Gi-hun's team splits into 2 pairs to find a third. Thanos suggests a game of rock, paper, scissors with player 125 and the pierced girl, and the winner will go with them to the room. The pierced girl reaches out to player 125, asking him to go with her to find the third player, but the young man shows scissors. Thanos, thinking the young man won, leaves the pierced girl behind and runs off. Player 7 and his mom search for a third to join them, but 2 guys who haven't found a partner yet take her son against his will, leaving the old woman alone. The old woman thinks it's the end for her, but at the perfect moment, Gi-hun appears and takes her with him. They hide in a room. In-ho asks the old woman where her son went, thinking he ran away from her. She tells him that her son loves her and would never do such a thing. In-ho apologizes for his words. The other participants leave the rooms and search for their teams to make sure everyone is okay. The old woman is relieved to see her son, runs to him, and he apologizes for leaving her. The old woman forgives him and says she's not upset. A new round begins. The music starts playing again, and this time, the number 6 is called. Everyone panics and starts looking for their team to survive and enter the room. Unfortunately, player 120, the transgender friend of player 125, is knocked down by player 95, and she doesn't manage to enter the room. Suddenly, Myung-gi enters the room and shuts the door behind her. At that moment, the countdown ends. Player 120 is left outside the door and is eliminated from the game. The transgender player cries and blames the YouTuber for what happened to her friend, but he defends himself, saying that everyone here only thinks about their own benefit. The pregnant girl supports her ex-boyfriend, saying he's right. After that, they leave the room and prepare for the final round. Only 100 participants are still alive. As usual, the music starts playing, and at the end, the number 2 is called. Chaos erupts as everyone rushes to occupy empty rooms. Thanos betrays player 125, choosing his friend instead. Player 1 enters an empty room with Yungbei, but discovers that someone is already there. In-ho asks him to leave, but the player refuses. With no other option and realizing time is running out, In-ho personally eliminates him from the game. After the game, the remaining participants go to the waiting room to rest. Thanos, seeing that number 125 is still alive, hugs him, despite betraying him in the final round. The YouTuber uses this opportunity to talk to the pregnant girl and try to mend their relationship. He asks Hyunju to forgive him and tells her that if they make it out alive, they can combine their winnings to pay off his debts and start a new life. He promises to take care of her and their son. Hyunju realizes that Myung-gi is trying to manipulate her for her money and rejects him. Thanos' sycophant sees them from afar and reports it to Thanos. Meanwhile, we see Jun-ho and his team reaching an island. They find a secret door, excitedly thinking it's the right one. They decide to go through it, but as soon as they open the door, a huge explosion occurs. They realize it was a trap. In the waiting room, a vote takes place to decide whether they want to continue the game for more money or take their winnings and leave. Gi-hun votes first, choosing to leave, and then the rest of the participants vote. In the end, 50% of the players want to continue the game, while 49% want to leave. Now the decision rests on player number 1. Jung-bai, who saw In-ho eliminate another player, thinks In-ho will choose to continue, but In-ho surprises him by choosing to leave. Thanks to In-ho's vote, the result is tied, and the soldiers announce that the vote will be repeated tomorrow. They give the participants time to think overnight. Meanwhile, the search team is considering what to do next. The sailors suggest returning to shore and continuing the search tomorrow, but the bandits don't want to stop because their boss, Kim, was killed in this game. Players who want the game to end discuss the next vote. The elderly woman suggests that if they remind everyone about home and good home-cooked meals, some might change their minds and decide to leave. She and her son try to convince the others to leave, explaining that the money they have already won is enough to improve their lives and live peacefully. The people with zeros laugh at the elderly woman because they want to continue the game to win a larger amount of money. A small conflict breaks out between the crosses and the zeros. Gi-hun realizes that things are getting serious as the game organizers deliberately gave them forks with their roles. In the restroom, number 125 hides from Thanos because he disobeyed Thanos and chose to end the game. At that moment, Myung-gi enters the restroom and stands up for him. A big argument breaks out, and Thanos attacks the YouTuber, knocking him to the ground. Thanos tells him that after this, he will deal with his girlfriend and son. The YouTuber, enraged, stabs him with a dining fork. When he realizes what he's done, he gets scared and hides in a toilet stall while a fight breaks out between the crosses and zeros outside. When they return from the restroom, everyone begins accusing each other of trying to eliminate them to win the vote. Meanwhile, a strong storm starts outside. One of the bandits, who had been seasick, goes up on deck. He accidentally notices the captain, who is tinkering with a drone. When the bandit asks what the sailor is doing, he tells him that he just wanted to look at the drone and see what it's made of. The man, though drunk, isn't stupid, and he asks why the captain tried to destroy the drone, but suddenly the captain turns out to be a traitor who didn't want the island to be found. He throws the bandit into the sea. Gi-hun, after counting the players, realizes there are now more of them, and they have a chance to win the vote tomorrow. In-ho tries to motivate the X-players to attack the O players first during the night, confident they'll do it. Gi-hun refuses, saying they're not the real enemies and that they need to fight the true enemies. The organizers of the game, who sit above and watch everything as if it's a reality show. Gi-hun suggests that the players hide under the beds during the night fight and, pretending to be eliminated, quickly seize weapons from the soldiers in order to storm the administration. Gi-hun's main goal is to stop the host forever. He's even willing to sacrifice other players for such a large-scale mission. The host barely holds back his laughter. Player 222 warns player 333 to hide as soon as the lights go out and not get involved in anything. As soon as the soldiers turn off the lights at night so the participants can sleep, the team that wants to continue uses this moment to attack those who want to leave. The place turns into a battlefield. Even the girl with the piercings is eliminated. Meanwhile, Gi-hun and his team are hiding under the beds, waiting for the soldiers. After 10 minutes of fighting, the soldiers enter the room to prevent further clashes between the participants. If only one person survives, the game will end, but the organizers want to see the show continue. When the soldiers check the eliminated players, they approach Gi-hun and his team, who are pretending to be victims. As soon as the soldiers get close to them, they take their weapons and a shootout begins. begins. When one of the soldiers is about to neutralize Gi-hun, player number 1 saves him. The man in the square mask watches all of this on the cameras, shocked by what's happening. He orders a retreat. The guards start running and begin locking the doors. One of them doesn't make it in time and runs out of ammo. Player number 47 starts to lose his mind, wanting to get revenge on the O players for all the X players who were disqualified, but Gi-hun stops him, saying their true enemies are the game organizers. They then destroy the surveillance cameras so the host won't know what's happening, not realizing the host is actually among them. The man in the black square mask presses the alarm button, summoning all the guards due to the players' rebellion. Gi-hun, in the meantime, speaks with the other participants, explaining the plan. He's going to capture the host, so he asks everyone who knows how to use a weapon to help. At first, everyone is scared, and no one wants to join. However, later on, a few people decide to join him in order to escape the game and return to their families. The old woman tries to convince her son not to go, while the pregnant girl shakes her head negatively at her ex-boyfriend. Weapons are handed out to those who join. Gi-hun then goes to interrogate a guard. He removes the guard's mask, and to everyone's surprise, it's the usual young guy, around 20 years old. The young man explains that he was forced to do this because he needed money. Gi-hun asks him to take them to the host. Following him, they head to the floor where the host is located. Suddenly, a group of soldiers appears on the stairs, and a shootout begins. The ex-players win, and none of their team members are harmed. They take the ammunition from the eliminated guards and continue on their way toward the host. Gi-hun asks the guard to open the door, but the guard says that a mask must be worn for that. Suddenly, the young man notices the host among them and doesn't understand what he's doing there. But his shock is brief as pink soldiers appear, and another shootout ensues. Since there are many more soldiers, and they cannot defeat them, Gi-hun decides to move forward with Jung-bae, telling the others to stay behind and cover them. On their way, Gi-hun and Jung-bae encounter many guards, who begin shooting at them to prevent them from reaching the host's room. Gi-hun uses the radio to ask someone to return to the waiting room and search the pink soldiers' pockets, as they're running out of ammo. Marine Dae-ho volunteers for this mission. In-ho, realizing that Gi-hun needs help, takes 2 ex-players with him and decides to assist Gi-hun. After some time, In-ho arrives to help Gi-hun and asks if Gi-hun has a plan. Gi-hun asks In-ho to try approaching the soldiers from behind. In-ho and the 2 other ex-players manage to get behind the guards. In-ho signals his team to start attacking the soldiers, but they get a surprise. In-ho shoots the ex-players from behind. In-ho radios Gi-hun, pretending that they failed. He makes Gi-hun hear the last breaths of a fallen comrade as if they were his own last breaths. Dae-ho, after reaching the waiting room, throws the radio away, scared that he won't survive, and stays there. Since Dae-ho isn't responding on the radio, a transgender person enters the waiting room. Dae-ho apologizes to them, saying he was just scared. The transgender person takes the magazines and prepares to run to help the others, but at that moment, soldiers enter the room. The transgender person reloads their weapon and is about to fight, but the old woman asks them to stop, as they have no chance against all of them. The other players, who have run out of ammo, are forced to surrender. They hope they'll be spared, but the soldiers eliminate them. Gi-hun and his friend also run out of ammo, and they surrender. In-ho, now the host, personally approaches them while wearing the mask. He aims at Gi-hun, but then shoots his friend Jung-bae, leaving Gi-hun alive. After the credits, we see a scene where the traffic light switches from red to green.